There have been several laws passed recently in Idaho meant to support sexual assault survivors. But are they helping? A recent study tries to answer that question. Is racism running rampant in the Boise Police Department? The answer to that question is being given to Boise City Council right now. They spent $500,000 to find out. Not a whole lot, apparently. Watch out, I think. Is that what they say in disc golf? Well, if you'd like to visit Veterans Memorial Park in Boise, you better learn, because a new course is going in.
So the public should expect to hear a rundown of what he's done, to hear a rundown of what he learned, and then I would expect, because we've said we're going to move on and have the department take a look at this, to hear as well what more could be done if we were to choose to spend a lot more money.
How about a little more money, like $150,000, which is what the law firm looking into racism in Boise's police department is asking for to wrap up their investigation. You just heard what Boise Mayor Lauren McLean told us last week when we asked her about what has been learned so far. Mayor McLean told us she hadn't seen that report yet till just today. She's going to hear it at the same time as taxpayers during tonight's City Council's regular work session, which is taking place right now. That's also when Council will decide or consider the additional $150,000 from the D.C. law firm Steptoe & Johnson on top of the $500,000 they've been paid so far. That request is on the consent agenda, which is usually just a formality, something usually approved without much discussion, but something Mayor McLean might have known about last week when she spoke with us. The change order form says it was prepared on the 5th of this month, 6 days before that interview with the mayor when she wasn't quite sure about spending more money on the investigation. The city says the additional funds came from the mayor's discretionary administrative budget and was needed to, quote, tie up loose ends, prepare a presentation, and recommend next steps. Again, things that are happening right now or pretty much may have already been done. The inception of this investigation dates back to November when racist comments by retired BPD Captain Matt Bringleson became public. The city launched an investigation into that officer's career and to find out if racism was a systemic problem within the agency. Again, that D.C. law firm, Steptoe & Johnson, presenting its findings this afternoon beginning at 4. So the question is, what did they find out? Well, from what we've heard so far, not much, and not a lot of confidence in what they did find. Abby Davis will explain what that means tonight on the News at 10. And while all that is getting sorted out, Boise police may be facing other issues, like a civil lawsuit against them. Remember when this scuffle broke out between a Boise Pride Festival private security guard and a protester at last September's event? Well, BPD went to break that up and then ended up giving that security guard a citation for battery. That security guard, Chuck Radorf, has now filed a tort claim against the city of Boise and BPD for negligence. Radorf's attorney, Max Williams, told us his client was found not guilty of battery this week, and in an official statement from his attorney, said in part, justice was partially served today, but there's still work to be done. They're hoping to answer some questions about what happened that day in order to restore Mr. Radorf's good name and reputation. Meanwhile, for sexual assault survivors and their ability to hold their attackers accountable, let's just say it's been complicated for decades in Idaho, dating back to stories we did in the mid-2000s about rape cases not getting prosecuted. Did you know before 2016, law enforcement agencies were not required to track the number of sexual assault kits they collected or report how many went untested? So yes, some of those sexual assault kits just sat there for years while the person responsible walked free. 7 years ago, Idaho lawmakers took notice and took action, beginning with requiring the testing of sexual assault kits in 2016, except in circumstances where the victim requests those kits not be tested. Next year, they passed laws to clarify a survivor's ability to pay and get those sexual assault kits. Then in 2019, House Bill 116 essentially achieved a test-all status for sexual assault kits, except for in very specific cases. So one would think this would mean long strides are being taken in support of sexual assault survivors. A team from Boise State School of Public Service dug into the impacts of these rules and laws, I should say, since 2019. And their new report, expanding on a 2021 study, asked the question if more laws would mean more justice. Joe Paris spoke with researcher Dr. Lisa Growit-Bostaff.
In all of the media attention, not just here in Idaho, but around the country about sexual assault kits, mixed with what people see in popular media, movies and television, the procedural dramas. We started hearing just, you know, in the communities, people saying, okay, now that there's all these sexual assault kits and they have to get tested, we're going to see all these arrests and all these convictions. And we thought, well, actually, that's a research question. We don't really know if that's going to happen or not. We thought we probably should take a look at this and actually find out, is it possible that these statutes could have some effect on the processing of sex crime cases?
Which I know was the hope at the time.
Yes, and we did find a couple of instances in the first report of HB 528, the very first one, having some effects on sex crime processing, but it really isn't until this one that we're able to really demonstrate the various effects, because we needed other years to compare it to rather than just a year before HB 528 and the year after.
So right now it seems like, you know, from the outside, it would say that, okay, we passed all these laws, we have some data now, let's see what these laws are doing. Is that
Yes.
simplified what you guys are doing?
Yes,
here?
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what does the report say?
What we found in the end is that there are some differences that we can see across the various pieces of legislation and before and after all the pieces of legislation, but it's not as dramatic as people would expect. Everybody was talking about how this was going to increase arrests, and arrests are very interesting in this study, because in the year following HB 528, the very first piece of legislation, there's a 650% increase in arrests in the year following that piece of legislation. Now, some people, and then it returns back to normal, just normal levels. And so people might look at that and say, oh my God, what's happened? Why did this not stay at the level it was? Well, we don't really know for sure, but I can venture a very educated guess that a big portion of that increase in arrests that happened after HB 528 had to do with backlogged cases that got tested. They got hits in the system and allowed officers to make an arrest.
Wasn't exactly the way that everyone thought it might play out, which is why we research things.
Right. Officers express a lot of support for the test-all statute. 61% of them are supportive or very supportive of the test-all statute. So things have really, I think that there are some really positive things that have happened, but I don't think it's the massive shift that many advocates or other people who work in this realm were looking for.
And the report goes really deep into a variety of impacts and data sets, and I'd really recommend checking out the full report that we will link to on our website. But a few takeaways from researchers that I thought we could share. There was a 67% increase in victim self-reporting after the collection of new laws. Idaho officers also documented that physical resistance during incidents in a larger percentage of cases after House Bill 429 passed, and that 2018 legislation, they've seen the increase over time. Now, the team concludes that the statutes resulted in more evidence documentation in sexual violence cases and increased prosecutorial review, but not a significant change in connecting victims to services or the proportion of cases ending in arrests. And Brian, connecting survivors to resources is something that clearly needs a lot of work, and anecdotally, we've heard that from people in the community. Also, a major thanks from the team at Boise State to the Idaho State Police and Forensics Service Director Matthew Guimette, because they work to provide resources, researchers access to the data in the report, and there's some recommendations in the report as well, and it'll be interesting to see if lawmakers and advocates, what they do with this information. But I did want to go back for a second and talk about the 650% increase and then it stabilizing. Something that I talked about with Dr. Groet Bostaff is that in sexual assault cases, there's a lot of time where the survivor knows the attacker. They're familiar with each other, and it becomes a situation in a courtroom of, was this consent? What was this? In those situations, sexual assault kits are not as impactful. So after that backlog was able to get cleared and they were able to tag people that were out there that were guilty of something, it kind of cleared that log. So again, sexual assault kits are very, very important, clearly, but this research kind of showed the limitations that there are with them.
So overall, kind of a mixed bag when it comes to results, but any progress in this case, in these situations, is good progress.
Right, because you highlighted in the beginning, you know, back in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, there's a lot of stories about, well, we just don't have the evidence to try these. Well, these types of laws, they really make differences.
All right, thank you very much, Joe. Boise has a lot of outdoor activities: mountain biking, hiking, pickleball, and now there's going to be more disc golf. The casual cousin of golf is making its way to Veterans Memorial Park. This is the part of the show where we ask to hear what you have to say. Just be cool about it, will you? Keep it clean, clever, and concise. And that way we can share yours at the end of the show. All you got to do is text us what you think to the number on your screen, 208-321-5614. Stick around. We could share yours. All right, speaking of the Boise River, over the weekend on Saturday evening, Boise Fire Department dropped this gem on social media. Tonight, Dive 1 rescued a man holding onto a tree in the middle of the Boise River. He was floating the river without a life jacket when he fell out of his tube. Due to the swift flows and cold water temperatures, he was unable to swim to shore, they posted. Okay, so just a reminder, this man did this, mind you, floating the river in a tube without a life jacket. And you saw how fast it was. Despite 80 of these signs, Boise's Parks and Rec Department staked into the ground along the Boise River, warning people of the danger. And it says right across the top, dangerous river conditions in large white on red letters with an exclamation point. The smaller print says, if you enter and have to be rescued, you will be charged for all efforts to rescue you. Well, fortunately, there was a happy ending to this story. It was a rescue and not a recovery, with the man only suffering early signs of hypothermia, according to Boise Fire. You know, loss of feeling in your hands and feet, which can happen, by the way, in under 5 minutes in water that's about 40 to 50 degrees. But that prompted this question from Jeff yesterday. Is the city of Boise going to fine the person that had to be rescued on the Boise River? Every year they put signs along the greenbelt saying, you may be fined if you need to be rescued. They should be fined, says Jeff. Remember, the sign says you will be charged, not you may be charged, and it's based on Boise City Code. So we asked Boise Fire what that charge might look like. Title 5, Chapter 13, the one that says, in order to protect the city from extraordinary expenses resulting from the utilization of city resources in response to certain public safety or fire emergency incidents, this chapter authorizes the imposition of charges to recover costs incurred by the city in responding to such incidents. In other words, so the rest of us don't have to pay for your complete disregard for safety or signs, by the way, or just blatant stupidity. We need this rule to say you're going to pay for it. And the city can charge for personnel, for supplies and equipment used for said emergency. The total would be based on the average cost of those services, and it will be billed directly to the responsible party or possibly their insurance company. Okay, so how much? Well, Boise Fire tells us the cost of a recovery of a dive rescue during dangerous river conditions is $1,425 an hour. $1,425 an hour. Anyone who willfully enters the Boise River and needs to be rescued will be billed that amount by way of an itemized invoice. And if they don't pay within 30 days, there will be a late fee of 1% per month. So here's the thing. The Boise River is running way too fast, and it's too chilly right now to safely float it. How fast? Okay, let's say it takes you about 2.5 hours to float that 6 miles from Barber Park to Ann Morrison Park during a normal float level of about 1,500 CFS, cubic feet per second. Today, at 6,000 CFS, it would take you about 37 minutes to go those 6 miles. From 2.5 hours to 37 minutes. So how about you just stay out of the water to avoid the $1,400 an hour fine or possibly something worse?
And yes, Brian is not wrong. Those rivers are high, they're fast, they're cold. Stay out. And unfortunately, in Haley and the Ketchum area as well, we are looking at the water coming to the residents, whether they like it or not. We have moderate flooding for the Big Wood River at Haley right now. There are some mandatory evacuations underway. You can read all about that at ktvb.com if you want to hear the latest on those evacuations. But here's the numbers for the Big Wood River. Today we're at 5.6 feet. Flood stage is 5 feet, and the river is going to keep on rising over the next week or so. We expect the Big Wood River to peak at about 6.8 feet. This is not dangerous flood stage or major flood stage. That happens at 8 feet, but still, those rivers very high thanks to all of the snow melt. And the snow melt will continue to be rapid this week. This is that 7-day forecast for our mountain locations. Temperatures will climb into the 70s tomorrow, up near 80 in many of our central mountain locations by Saturday. Slight storm chance sneaks back into the forecast next week, and temperatures will finally drop, but still unseasonable warmth coming our way. Speaking of unseasonable warmth, we're at 83 degrees in Boise at this moment. That's 10 degrees above our normal high temperature for this point in the month of May, and it looks like a gorgeous evening out there. You'd be hard-pressed to believe that all of this is happening if you're hanging out in the City of Trees right now. We've had storms rolling through the Magic Valley. We had a severe thunderstorm warning that was in effect for northeastern Malheur County. That has since expired, but if you're in Weiser, portions of Washington County, Adams County, this storm is making a beeline for you straight from west to east. It was packing 60-mile-per-hour winds and the possibility of quarter-sized hail. It's weakened a little bit, but still, when thunder roars, please head indoors, batten down the hatches, and just wait out that storm inside. All of this part of this area of low pressure still that is taking its sweet time, making its way across the Gem State. It will slowly start to exit out over the next several days. Still a slight chance of showers tomorrow, though, even for the Treasure Valley, maybe some isolated storms. Look at the heat that ramps up, though, for the end of the work week into the weekend. We're talking low 90s Friday, Saturday, Sunday. That's heat that is more typical of mid-July than mid-May.
Boise owns and manages 90 parks across the city, but Veterans Memorial Park isn't one of them, believe it or not. It's actually owned by the Idaho Department of Parks and Recreation, and the city just leases it. And in that lease, there's a part where the city has to provide an updated management plan. The deadline to do that is this year, which is why the city is now rolling out their master plan for Veterans Memorial Park. And public input is pushing that plan towards something with a metal chain basket. How about disc golf in and around the vets' monuments? Here's Andrew Bartline.
Nature brings people out to Ann Morrison Park,
Just when we're going around this mandatory tree,
but it's a reverberation
nice sound to hear.
that keeps a consistent crowd returning time and time
Oh man,
again.
not always as lucky.
Dan Oates
but
has played for 20 years,
That's why you can just keep coming back out to Ann Morrison and keep on playing.
playing mostly for the music.
All right.
And over at the city,
what I think is probably Boise's best assets.
Sarah Arkle says the Parks and Rec department is hearing it too.
Yeah, people are engaged. They care about what's going on with their park.
At least 1,300 people cared enough to fill out a public survey. It involves the future of Veterans Memorial Park.
We're not at a final design phase yet.
But the Parks and Rec Commission has approved the revision plan, influenced by those public survey results.
We'll see if I made it to the other side.
It's a survey that's listening too.
And I was like, hey, disc golf would be a cool one. I already saw it was on the docket, and so I was a big fan. Put my name beside it.
Disc golf was the top choice, meaning Dan isn't alone.
No, not at all.
We have been seeing that community sort of explode.
The Parks and Rec Commission heard public comments on Monday that included concerns over an 18-hole course being too large for the space.
18 would be phenomenal, especially for opening the options for tournaments and local vendors and anyone else just to be able to come and play what you consider a full disc golf course.
Today, Ann Morrison remains the city of Boise's only full course, the only place you can hear the crash of chain wind chimes 18 times over,
This distance is a bear.
even if it takes a few extra tries. The rest of that master plan includes nature play areas, a shaded plaza, also high interest as more accessibility to the Greenbelt too. The city is also working alongside vet organizations that are interested in a public building on site for events too. The budget for this entire plan is $660,000. Parks and Rec says that money comes from impact fees. So nothing set in stone right now, Brian. There are ongoing discussions with stakeholders, people who live in the neighborhood. But this is the direction they're really aimed at right now, and it seems that there's good support for it. Even the people that are concerned about a disc golf course, it's not like an unequivocal, we don't like it, just questions of how are we going to do it and do it well.
Do it and do it well. You need, I mean, I was looking that up, like how much space do you need for a disc golf course? Maybe like, I don't know, as little as 1 to 2 acres I was kind of reading about for 18, I guess, if you want to put that in. But when he said a full-fledged disc golf course, they talking 9 holes or 18?
It would be 18, yeah.
18. Is there enough space there? There's a lot of trees at that park too.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot, but it looks like there's a lot of land, too, that maybe hasn't been built on. There's a lot of wild grass out there, but then there's the conversation of maintaining maybe those natural areas and not wanting to put a footprint on that, too. So I think that's part of the conversation. There's a big box elder tree there as well. If you listen to those public comments during the hearing, there's a specific tree everyone loves there, and I feel like I'm outing myself. I went there and I didn't know what tree they were talking about. I feel kind of stupid.
Well, you're not an arborist, so that's all right.
There's a tree there that everyone loves. It's a box elder, and everyone wants to protect that tree. That's part of it, too, taking care of the box elder.
Play away from the box elder.
It seems that that's a compromise they're looking toward.
All right, thanks, Andrew. All right, let's wrap up this Tuesday show and look at some of the comments you sent in. This one from Pat in Boise. I find Mayor McLean's attitude about spending all this taxpayer money on an out-of-state lawyer to be quite flippant. I guess it all matters or depends if it bears results. That would be the big question. We'll find out more about that tonight on the news at 10. How about more disc golf? More than 20 years overdue. One of the best and popular forms of family recreation available in the Valley, says Derek and Terry. It is kind of taking over some of these parks now. The person floating the Boise River reminds me of the time I lived in Alabama. You can't tell me what to do, says Jim. Seems to be a lot of that going around, unless you're of a certain gender in Idaho. You can't fix stupid, but you can charge for it, says Nancy in McCall. Stay out of the river. That's the message. Stay out of the river. Somebody sent us video during the show of somebody trying to surf in the river right now. Just recently. Don't do it. It's dangerous, and you will pay $1,425 an hour if you need to be rescued. This question, when will we know what today's results from the levy vote will be? Well, polls don't close until 8 o'clock tonight. We should start to see results kind of trickle in a little after that. We'll have the latest at KTVB.com, and of course, tonight on the news at 10. We'll see you tomorrow.